This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome to Writings, Chats, and Friends. Today I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Monica Brinkman. And our very special guest today is author and educator, Tom Davis. And we're going to be talking today mostly about Tom's book, Apples for the Wild Stallion. It is, I would say, young adult friendly, but more importantly, it is about a youngster who is on the spectrum, and we'll be talking about the spectrum, and his special ability, if it were, as it were, and also we'll be talking about, well, the Wild West. So get your spurs up on the bed because you don't want to die with your boots off. Been working around the area of Gallup, New Mexico, which is fairly close to the border of Arizona, and more importantly, very close to the Navajo Nation, the Zuni community, of course, up beyond the Navajo, the Hopi. So what were you doing in that area?
I was the provost at Navajo Technical University.
Oh, so you were involved in the education, technical education of, well, not, I know it's not just Navajo, primarily Navajo, but other members of other tribes come to that university and learn technical skills. And so you guys, from the sound of the book, which is a novel, folks, but just the beauty, the way with which you describe the beauty, it sounded to me like you really like Gallup.
I hope it's like Gallup. I worked hard at it. We lived in a place called Continental Divide, which is 45 minutes or so from Gallup, and it's right over the border from the reservation and a little town called Thoreau. Spelled like Thoreau, but pronounced out there as Thoreau. It's by the Red Cliffs and the Zuni Mountains.
Yeah. So you set your novel there on a ranch, and it really sounded to me like you loved that part of the world and the wildlife. Because one of the major characters in this novel is a wild horse.
Yep, a white wild stallion.
Yeah. Monica, have you ever been to that part of New Mexico?
I haven't. I've just been through New Mexico a few times, but it's a beautiful country. I wish I could visit there again.
Well, when you come here to visit us in Arizona, we'll take a couple-day trip. When my brother came out, he wanted to do a day trip from Phoenix to Santa Fe. And I said, okay. I said, we might even have room for a rest stop. When we get to Santa Fe, you can get out, we'll find a bathroom before we head back. He has no idea how big these states are.
We went through Santa Fe, actually.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well,
I recall buying some trinkets and such, from the Native Americans there.
Right. Well, if you go to Gallup, one of the things about Gallup is it's a wonderful place to buy Navajo, Hopi, Zuni, and even other tribes, but particularly those three tribes. Their baskets, their silver work, their
That's beautiful.
commercial fishes, things like that.
Great.
Yeah.
And rugs, don't forget Navajo rugs.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, rugs. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Crown Point, where Navajo Technical University is located, has a monthly rug auction.
Oh, wow.
So I had a question, Tom.
The
With new technology, are they using any of that, or are they still doing the old way of, doing the weaving and that type of thing?
Oh yeah, at the university we teach the traditional way of weaving rugs, among other crafts and arts like that, as well as the most modern IT multimedia you could possibly imagine, that's way out on the cutting edge.
Yeah, one of the things about some traditional crafts, such as the Zuni silverwork or the Apache baskets or the Navajo rugs, is that, those technologies were really wonderful. They produced fabulous product.
Mm.
We don't want to lose those abilities.
No.
Somebody can come up with a loom that can go. It's still not the same as that.
It's a difference between making pasta by hand or going to buy it in the store, to me. I love the old traditions.
Yep, absolutely.
Navajo Tech is owned by the Navajo Nation.
Right.
It's a Navajo controlled and operated university. And of course, at the very heart of the tribal college and university movement is the idea of preserving culture and especially saving native languages wherever the tribal college or university is located.
Yeah. So let's talk about, we've done this pin to the beautiful area, and I want to encourage people, seriously, if you have a chance, folks, to visit, it's the Four Corners, Monument Valley, Canyon de Chelly, just stop and gallop to buy stuff. I mean, there's so many beautiful areas around there worth your visit, and certainly worth your tourist dollars. And the Navajo Nation, by the way, is huge. It stretches all the way over to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I don't think most people realize that.
Yeah, it goes all the way over. So after you go to the, when you get to the Grand Canyon, if you go to the north side of it particularly, you're in Navajo country. And even if you go down to Flagstaff, even though it's not governed by the Navajo, it's traditional Navajo land. And one of the things I love, this is just a side, but one of the things I love, if you stay at like a B&B or something like that, outside of Flagstaff, on the northern side of Flagstaff, outside the city limits, the Navajo still have the right to pasture their cattle. So if your yard is not fenced in, you have no redress if Navajo cattle come and start eating your bushes and things. Range.
It's like the deer here, I know.
Well, anyway, let's now move away from that part of the story, and let's talk about what is your connection, Tom, to people on the spectrum? How did you get interested in the spectrum?
Well, of course, I have a grandson, Joey Bingham.
Mm-hmm.
And he was born, and of course, he had some troubles early on. He seemed to be developing language and early skills, and then pretty rapidly that went away, and he could no longer speak. And so we've lived with Joey as he's grown to adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And He's now 19, and he has severe autism. He has a lot of challenges in life. He can learn using assisted devices of either the iPad, Apple iPad, or other devices that he uses. And he can read. He can't read. He can use a minimal amount of sign language. He has a lot of movement type of mannerisms. It's like is very routine oriented. He has trouble breaking out of those routines. And there's just an awful lot like that. But my connection to the autism world started with Joy. And of course, then we have my daughter, Sonia. And Sonia has been extremely active with various organizations within the autism community. She fought the big power business and manufacturing infrastructure in Wisconsin, managed to get the state legislature to pass legislation so that autism people can get insurance coverage now in Wisconsin, partially because of her and the people working with her. And they recently founded a new Matthias Academy in southern Wisconsin that's going to be dedicated to providing an option for autism people after they get to be adults and can no longer go to school. So,
oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So let's back up here for a second, because nowadays we call it the spectrum, and there's people like your grandson who are fairly far to the extreme problem area, and then there are other people who are seen. Well, you know, when we used to call a lot of them, we used to use the phrase simple schizophrenia, and I once asked a professor at a psych course in grad school, where would I find simple schizophrenics? He says, well, you just go downstairs in the libraries at Columbia, Yale, Harvard, Princeton, into the Carrolls, and they're all there. They're the graduate students who are all there working away. We don't know what that spectrum really is. It seems to have communication issues, empathy issues, but it also has some high skill areas. And of course, now it has become more popularized to accept into the mainstream. Neuroatypical is now a phrase that's popular. People, partly because in fact, on the popular media, we have TV shows like The Good Doctor, in which the main character, or one of the main characters, suffers from autism or is on the spectrum, or however you want to call it. But he's a brilliant surgeon. And then there's also a wonderful, if you haven't seen it, I think it's a Netflix, I'm not sure. It's called Atypical, and it is one of the most charming, beautiful television programs I've ever seen. And again, it is about a young man who is on the spectrum, but it was also got wit and intelligence and some artistic ability. So it seems like it is this range. And one of the things is, as you've mentioned, Tom, is how do they communicate with people? So tell us a little bit about this assisted communication.
Yes.
Well, with an iPad, of course, there's special software that you can buy that allows, you know, the person with autism to point to a frown or whatever. They can type to a degree with it. There's special help with typing so that, like Joey can do some words. He has a relatively large vocabulary, We have no idea how large it really is. He reacts better to sound really than sight. We also have sort of figured that out over the years. But anyway, there's these tools that allow various sounds to mean certain things, as well as visual type clues, sort of like hieroglyphs from Egypt or something, so that they point at those and they can communicate pretty successfully that way. I mean,
one of the things you're saying is that that they have often more ability to conceptualize, not in the most abstract sense, but in the sense of hey, I'm angry, or I'm sad, or I want this for dinner, not that. They have more ability to conceptualize than they have to express. So this facilitates the expression.
I suspect Joy is relatively intelligent. We know that he can do, they tested him, of course they have to use special testing procedures, right. But they tested him in about just before he left grade school. And they found that he was doing grade level math. They found that he understood the concepts as well as, just the story function of a story.
Must be very frustrating for him.
Oh, I think it is.
Yeah.
For many years, he was very, very angry, and a lot of people with autism at the more severe area tend to be a little angry, and because people aren't, they can't communicate what they're feeling, they can't communicate what they're thinking, and people don't get it. Even his mother, until they found the assisted devices and everything and started using them successfully, she could interpret him better than anybody else in the universe. His father was pretty good too. His brother was pretty good too, but still they couldn't get the depth of how much he knew.
Right.
I'm sort of amazed.
So I suppose they really just have to find the right thing that works for each individual.
I think that's probably true. We know that Joey absolutely loves to read. At Apple for the Wild Stallion, we were down at Sonia's house outside of between Lake Geneva and Burlington, Wisconsin. And Sonia had just started reading the first Harry Potter book to him because she has to read to him. He can't read.
Mm-hmm.
But he loves to listen.
Right. And Sonia sort of...
but he comprehends it, correct?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You can ask pretty sophisticated questions and get relatively sophisticated answers, but you have to have a lot of patience to get those answers. You don't get, like, you ask me a question, I respond. I say something to you, you respond. That's not how it works. You have to be patient while he figures out how to respond and then does respond. It's sort of a delayed response, but absolutely.
So one of the heroes in your book is a young man who has similar kinds of problems. I guess you modeled him after your grandson.
Yes. Well, at least to some degree. I mean, I tried to tell the story from his standpoint.
Right.
And of course, I can't see into Joey's head. So in the end, it is a novel, right? Fiction.
One of the things about this youngster in the novel is that he has a particular affinity for horses, which is a good thing since he is growing up on a working ranch and they have horses. and he actually rides sometimes with his sister or his parent, and he loves horses. But then there's this wild stallion that appears, and between them, a very special bond grows. And I don't want to talk too much about apples because they really, I don't like to give too many spoilers, but it isn't as simple as, oh, okay, you walk in the barn and you hold out your hand with the apple and the horse takes it, because we're talking about an autistic youngster and a wild horse. And the growth of the relationship between the two of them is what makes this book a somewhat magical read.
Yeah, it sounds like it to me. I was just thinking as you were talking, Ken, how beautiful. What a relationship. What a gift to him.
But this isn't Sweetsy, by the way. It's a hard bit novel. It's got gunplay, and it's got bad guys and rustlers, and it is a real story. Good hard driving story. Who do you think would want to read this, Tom? What age group did you aim at?
Well, I found that it's actually a pretty large age group. I've been actually sort of surprised by that.
Oh, that's great.
I've had yesterday, I did a book signing at one of the local bookstores on Washington Island, and we had several young people with autism stop by. And of course, it seems like people love horses,
Right.
especially these young people who are suffering from one degree or another to autism. And so I know that there's an audience there with that particular community, especially the ones with limited verbal capability, because they've been showing up at the books side.
Right. Cool.
But I've also had several grandparent types that have read the book, and you guys are authors, so you don't know really what they think, I guess, but at least what they express is that, gee, I wish you hadn't included a young adult novel on the cover, because I really enjoyed that. It seems like it appeals to a little bit broader spectrum than I perhaps thought it would when I wrote it. I wrote it really for people anywhere from 11, 10-year-old through the first couple of years of college, probably that age range. But
a lot of us older adults actually enjoy reading good YA fiction because it's a nice, easy read for us too. And I thought this was a very nice, easy reading book. I was wondering, your grandson, has he ever had any contact with equine therapy? Has he ever even been on a horse?
Oh, he loves horses. That's why I wrote this particular book.
Oh.
Did he have a special horse?
His life.
Did he have a special horse?
Oh, his favorite is Brownie, which is in the novel.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. They have a riding, Smiles, it's called, place not too far from where they live. And every chance that he can get, of course, costs money. So you know how that goes. You can't go quite as often as you maybe would like, but every chance that he can get his mom or his dad to take him, or his brother to take him over there, that's where he wants to go. Just loves,
Folks, I got a great idea. Here's what you do, okay? I want you to go buy a copy. You can get it in Kindle or you can get it in hardcover of Apples for the Wild Stallion by our guest today, Thomas Davis. And I'm going to ask Tom if you will commit to spending some of the royalties on helping your grandson to get more riding time.
Oh, all the royalties are going to either him. We're giving some also to the Matthias Academy and Smiles and some other places.
That's wonderful.
There you go. That's a way you can help Tom's grandson get on that horse more. Let's keep Brownie at work.
That's a wonderful thing.
Tom, I know, if people look for you, and we're going to be putting up, folks, as we always do, some links. And I've asked Tom for his own webpage link. And of course, from there, you can get to his books and things. And for some of these organizations, and Monica's going to put them up in the show description. Please click on them, please. But I want to just mention that Tom's written a lot of other stuff. What's in the Unsettled Homeland of Dreams? Very quickly, elevator pitch, Tom. What's it about?
That's about a real community before the Civil War that were escaped slaves that fled from Missouri to Washington Island in Wisconsin, at the time of the most remote places on earth, and founded a fishing community there. What happened to them once they got to that fishing community? So it's got the slave escape section, and also what happened once they got to Washington Island and tried to carve a community of Black settlers out of the wilderness.
And isn't there a one gentleman that headed that?
Oh, preacher Tom Bennett.
Yes. This is the one I was mentioning earlier, folks. And I just, the Underground Railroad and what happened, and I think many people don't know anything about it. And what a great book to read. Yeah, I grew up in one of the towns where they actually had a Underground Railroad.
Back, Tom, to talk about that book and focus on it. And also your newest book, I know you had at work. Gav, it's going to take you a while to do it, about another historical novel. Why don't we quickly tell people what you're working on now? Because I was fascinated. Monica, I think you're going to be too.
It's going to be, I've already got 140,000, 50,000 words into it. So it is quite far along, but it's going to be called Prophecy of the Storyteller Wolf. And it's about a Wabino who is a Potawatomi, I guess you call him a shaman within English, or I think that would be the closest approximation to. But anyway, they're in Door County, in Wisconsin, Washington Island, and it's in the 1600s, mid 1600s, when of course the French fur trade was just at its very, very beginnings within this northern woodland part of the world, northern forest part of the world. And so it's telling a story about Quapaw. I'm using a lot of Potawatomi place names within the novel, though that's somewhat of a challenge, and I still have a lot of research to do. But it tells the story of Quapaw and what basically happened to him as he tried to preserve sanctity of Potawatomi culture and language and spirituality, as of course the Jesuits and the French came in and started basically integrating the Potawatomi and the multitude of other tribes that existed within the confines of the fur trade, and what happened as he tried to do that.
So I'm looking forward to reading that. I'm going to assume that by the time you have finished and got it published, you're going to have whittled it down in size while improving the content, because that's the process of writing, right? It's called write. You write, then you edit. And every word you remove is like taking a piece of your own flesh.
I'm not sure I would go that far, but if I go through 20, 25 drafts of anything before it's finished. So I have absolutely zero idea how long it's going to be when I get done.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, if you're thinking of writing, I know I would say this, Tom just said it, Monica, I know you believe it too. Writing is not, oh, wow, okay, I'm done. Oh, I can read this in November. It is a process of writing, thinking, working, reworking, editing, drafts. It is hard work. Maybe not as hard as running a ranch outside of Gallup, New Mexico, at least physically, but emotionally it's hard work. And and I take my hat off to any of my peers who are able to keep writing good stuff. And I do want to mention, before we stop, because we are out of time, but I do want to mention this great book. Okay, it's called Apples for the Wild Stallion. It's by our guest today, Thomas Davis. And you can buy it in Kindle or paperback on Amazon. And it's really just a pleasant, interesting read. I enjoyed reading it, and I think you will. And
yeah, it's on my to-read list.
I was going to say you should put it on your list. And folks, you should put it on your list as well. Tom, any last words of wisdom or humor or whatever that you'd like to share with our audience today?
If I probably have anything to say in my life, it is that, there's all kinds of people in the universe. And not all of them are going to be like you are or like I am. And that's okay. And just because they're different from you doesn't mean that they're less than you. I mean, whether they have autism. I mean, the Navajo students at Navajo Technical University, some of them are absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to think like, somebody in New York City or Phoenix, Arizona, particularly. But they're important people, as is my grandson and other people with autism or other handicaps.
Exactly.
Right.
And we need to honor that. And if I have anything to say in my whole life, that's probably it. I've written about dragons. I've written about different peoples. I've written historical novels, epic poems, all kinds of things, and had them published. And that, I think, is probably the central message of all my work.
It's a wonderful message.
Thanks so much for sharing your message and your time today with us, Tom. And again, I'd love to have you come back at some point to talk about In the Unsettled Homeland of Dreams, which is on my to-read list. And of course, when your new book is ready to come out, we certainly would want you to come on and tell us.
Please come back. I really enjoyed this conversation and getting to know you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Been a lot of fun.
It sure has. And we always put a little something at the end, folks. So with that, please take a look at our guest's book and all the other books that he has written. I don't think you'll be sorry for doing so. And what a great gift for somebody. Okay, take care, Tom.
Bye, folks.
Guys, thank you.
Here you go.